This video will cover information on new and updated ACCS and Southern Union policies. The Alabama Community College System is committed to maintaining a harassment-free environment for both employees and students. All individuals are expected to uphold high ethical and professional standards, promoting respect, dignity, and personal integrity. The key points for Harassment Policy 601.04 state that there is zero tolerance for harassment. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. This includes repeated, threatening, or intimidating behavior, offensive jokes or language, assault, and unwanted contact outside of work hours unless job-related. The scope of the policy applies to all employees, students, and non-employees interacting with them. Violations of this policy by employees may result in disciplinary actions. Employees will need to follow the following reporting requirements for Policy 601.04. Victims or witnesses of harassment must report incidents to the Title IX Coordinator, Human Resources, or the President within 10 days. Failure to report or investigate incidents violates policy, and retaliation against those who report harassment is strictly prohibited. As part of education and training on this policy, the policy procedures must be communicated to all, and each college must provide annual training on harassment, including sex-based harassment. Sex-based harassment includes quid pro quo harassment. This is the offering of benefits in exchange for sexual conduct. Hostile environment harassment is unwelcome sex-based conduct that is offensive and severe enough to affect participation in college activities. This also includes harassment based on sexual orientation, gender identity, pregnancy, sex stereotypes, and related factors. Complaints involving sex-based harassment must follow Policy 6.2.0.03. Student-involved complaints must follow Policy 800.01. Policy 620.03 provides a process for employees to report serious concerns such as discrimination, excluding sex-based discrimination, harassment, excluding sexual harassment, hostile work environment, ethical or legal violations, criminal acts, and violations of ACCS, college, and chancellor policies. This policy does not cover general workplace grievances, sex-based harassment or discrimination, or complaints against a president. Reporting requirements for Policy 6.20.03 are as follows. Complaints must be reported within 10 calendar days of the incident. Reports should be made to the Title IX Coordinator, Human Resources Director, or the President. A written statement must assist in the investigation process. The investigation process includes that a designated investigator, possibly legal counsel, will conduct a prompt review. Investigations should be completed within 45 to 60 days. A final written response will be provided within 15 to 30 days of completion, and extensions can be granted with agreement from both parties. Employees who file complaints in good faith are protected from retaliation. Any retaliation will result in disciplinary action. Policy 607.01 is a new policy that covers the evaluation of a system president. This policy states that the Chancellor shall evaluate the performance of any president under the authority and direction of the Board of Trustees at least once every 3 years. The Chancellor has the authority to create, implement, modify, or revise instruments, formats, methods, and procedures for evaluations as the Chancellor sees fit. The evaluation will be maintained in the President's personnel file at the System Office and will be available to the Board of Trustees upon request. Policy 608.02 is an updated policy regarding holidays. Employees shall be given the following official holidays: New Year's Day, Martin Luther King and Robert E. Lee's birthday, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, which is a new holiday, Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. In addition, the president of each institution shall designate 5 other days on which the institution will be closed in the official approved calendar of the institution. The normal work week for full-time and non-instructional personnel employed by system institutions is at least 40 hours, excluding lunch. Days that the institution is officially open are duty days for full-time and non-instructional employees of each institution. The normal work week of a full-time instructor, librarian, or counselor shall be a minimum of 35 clock hours, excluding lunch and other regularly scheduled breaks. This does not mean that each instructor is to be on duty 7 hours per day, but it does mean that each instructor is to have a regular schedule of instruction, office hours, advising, planning, and institutional duties. Full-time instructors, librarians, and counselors employed on an academic year contract, fall and spring semesters, shall work the number of instructional and non-instructional days as indicated by the college. Full-time instructors, librarians, and counselors employed on a 12-month contract shall work the number of instructional and non-instructional days as indicated by the college. Those employed full-time for the summer shall work the number of instructional and non-instructional days as indicated by the college. Policy 610.01 of the Alabama Community College System now offers paid parental leave to eligible full-time employees. All full-time employees, faculty, and staff must have completed 12 consecutive months of ACCS or state service. This policy applies to births and adoptions for children less than or equal to 3 years. Also included in this policy is miscarriages and stillbirths. Qualifying events provide the primary parent 8 weeks of leave, and the other parent will receive 2 weeks of leave. Leave must be used within 12 months of the event. Only one event allowed per 12-month period. Pay and benefits for parental leave are as follows. For Policy 610.01, employees are paid at 100% of base salary. No leave bank required. This does not reduce sick or annual leave. Leave does not roll over or count toward retirement. FMLA integration runs concurrently with FMLA, if eligible. FMLA paperwork is still required, and HR will assist. FMLA protects your job and benefits during leave. The request process includes submitting a written leave plan to the supervisor or HR at least 30 days before the expected event, or as soon as possible for emergencies. Employees must sign a return-to-work agreement committing to 8 weeks of work post-leave. Parental leave may be taken all at once or continuously, on a part-time or reduced schedule, intermittently as approved, and must be used within 12 months of the qualifying event. For questions or help, please contact the Office of Human Resources. New Policy 623.01 is to ensure all new employees and volunteers at ACCS colleges undergo appropriate background checks for the safety and integrity of the institution. Employees and volunteers must adhere to a background check for the following conditions. New hires and new volunteers, as of July 1st, 2024, unless exempt. Those working in security and law enforcement, with access to criminal justice records, or non-residents of Alabama or Georgia. Employees and volunteers under the age of 18 must have parental consent, and vendors with employees who have regular student contact. Exemptions to this policy are previous hires or volunteers employed or serving before July 1st, 2024, are exempt unless reasonable suspicion exists of a felony or crime involving moral turpitude, or is required by a specific institution. There are ongoing and special cases where specific institutions may require a background check. At J.F. Ingram State Technical College, all employees must undergo background checks at least every 5 years. Also, adjuncts and temporary employees are subject to annual or return background checks. Regarding convictions, A felony or crime involving moral turpitude disqualifies employment and volunteering, unless approved by the college president. Convictions must be reported within 5 days. Failure to report is grounds for discipline or termination. A background check can also be initiated at any time if there's reasonable suspicion of a felony or crime of moral turpitude. The reporting process for criminal background checks are as follows. SUSCC Safety and Security Office reviews findings and discusses them with the applicant. The applicant may appeal the finding. Final hiring decision is made by the college president. HR is notified of the decision. Key definitions are: a new hire is anyone hired or rehired into a different position on or after July 1, 2024. A new volunteer is anyone who started their volunteer service after July 1, 2024. Alabama, Georgia, and exempted state residents can affect the type of background check required. Previous hires or volunteers hired in the same role before July 1, 2024. Policy 800 refers to non-discrimination and is a new policy that states that no student shall be discriminated against on the basis of any impermissible criterion or characteristic, including, but not limited to, race, color, national origin, religion, marital status, disability, gender, age, or any other protected class as defined by federal and state law. Institutions must publish their policies regarding non-discrimination. Each college shall adopt a policy stating that the college does not discriminate on the basis of sex and prohibits sex discrimination in any education program or activity that it operates, as required by Title IX, including in admission and employment. Policy 800.01 refers to sex-based harassment complaints and is a new policy. This policy establishes a standardized process for handling sex-based harassment complaints involving students. This also covers conduct that is harassment based on sex, including unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. The key features clarify what constitutes sex-based harassment, example quid pro quo, and a hostile environment. It also covers who qualifies as complainants and respondents, typically students and possibly employees. There are multiple reporting options for sex-based harassment claims, including Title IX coordinators, college officials, or other designated personnel. There are reporting options for anonymous or confidential reporting to support both safety and privacy. Once a complaint is lodged, an initial assessment ensures that it falls under Title IX or related SUSCC jurisdiction. Trained staff or investigators will begin to gather evidence, interview involved parties, and view related documentation. While investigations are ongoing, measures such as no contact orders, academic adjustments, or temporary class reassignments may be implemented to protect complainants. Based on the preponderance of evidence, more likely than not, decisions are made. Resolutions may include disciplinary actions for respondents and support services for complainants. Both parties have the right to appeal the decision within a set time frame under defined grounds. Examples of these are procedural error, new evidence, and bias. SUSCC provides training for Title IX coordinators, investigators, and others involved. There is oversight to ensure uniform compliance across all colleges. What to do if you are involved? Students will need to report any sex-based harassment to the campus Title IX coordinator or any official designated under SUSCC policy. Staff and faculty are typically required to report incidents when aware to the Title IX coordinator and support compliance. It is important for everyone involved to keep documentation, including dates, times, descriptions, and witnesses. Employees become eligible for FMLA once they meet the following federal requirements. Employed at least 12 months, not necessarily consecutive. Worked at least 1,250 hours in the past 12 months. Work at a covered employer, such as a public agency or private, with 50-plus employees within 75 miles. Eligible employees are entitled to up to 12 weeks of unpaid, job-protected leave during a 12-month period for personal serious health condition, birth and care of a newborn child, adoption or foster care placement, and caring for a spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition. FMLA, Leave Usage and Coordination, states that FMLA leave can be taken intermittently or on a reduced schedule based on medical necessity. Use of accrued paid leave, annual and sick, is required concurrently with FMLA leave until those balances are depleted. During FMLA, benefits such as health insurance remain intact under the same terms as if the employee were continuously working. Employees are covered by protections and responsibilities. These protections include job restoration. Employees must be reinstated to their original or an equivalent position, similar pay, benefits, and status upon return. Non-retaliation. The policy prohibits interference with any FMLA rights or retaliatory actions for exercising or supporting such rights. Certifications and updates. Employees must provide medical certification and periodic updates. Failure may affect eligibility. Administrative notes. Most institutions align the 12-month FMLA period with the benefit year that runs from September 1st through August 31st. Employers should designate leave as FMLA upfront whenever possible. Maternity leaves may include up to 6 months unpaid, with paid leave not reducing the unpaid leave entitlement. ACCS employees should follow the guidelines listed for FMLA leave. Notify your supervisor and human resources if you expect an extended absence for 3 or more days. Use accrued leave, annual or sick, concurrently with FMLA. Provide required medical certifications to support your leave request. Confirm with HR the effective 12-month period at your institution. Track your leave usage to ensure continuous benefit coverage. And create a dialogue with HR before returning to verify position reinstatement and benefit continuation. Southern Union offers a professional growth and salary progression plan for all employees. The purpose of the professional growth and salary progression is to encourage professional development among faculty and staff members and establish clear guidelines for salary progression tied to professional growth and employment status. Faculty and staff who wish to pursue higher education or professional advancement may request to develop a PGP. The PGP should outline specific goals related to skill development, continuing education, certifications, or other professional achievements. The PGP should be formulated collaboratively between the employee and their immediate supervisor, and must be signed by both the immediate supervisor and employee, and maintained in the employee's personnel file. Salary progression and probationary status guidelines state that, if approved by the college's president, salary increases related to professional growth, including those resulting from completed training, certifications, or education, will only take effect after the faculty or staff member has achieved non-probationary employment status. Faculty and staff who complete professional development activities while on probationary status will have approved salary adjustments deferred until successful completion of the probationary period. The probationary period is defined as a 3-year initial employment period during which an employee's performance and suitability for continued employment are evaluated. The President of Southern Union may grant exceptions to the provisions of this policy when necessary to meet instructional or institutional needs, such as when an instructor is required to obtain additional credentials or to teach multiple subject areas. Supervisors and human resources will monitor and support the implementation of professional growth plans. Employees must submit documentation of completed professional development activities to their supervisors for consideration in salary progression. All salary increases are subject to the approval of the college's president in alignment with ACCS policy and the provisions of this policy. This policy will be reviewed annually by the President, Human Resources, and the executive team members to ensure continued effectiveness and alignment with institutional goals. Southern Union State Community College encourages its employees to become actively involved in supporting the community we serve. In recognition of the college's interest in supporting our community, up to 8.75 hours of volunteer service leave may be granted each semester based on the parameters outlined within this policy. Volunteer services would be provided to an organization with goals that the college would deem ethical and consistent with our mission, such as volunteer service to a nonprofit organization, volunteer service in an educational institution, example, secondary educational system or childcare program, volunteer service with a human service organization, and volunteer service with a public or state agency. Volunteer service leave applies to full-time employees of the college. Full-time employees will be eligible for up to 8.75 hours each semester. This applies to fall, spring, and summer, as published in the college calendar. Volunteer service leave may be taken in incremental timeframes, as long as it is taken in at least 1-hour increments and does not exceed 8.75 hours each semester. Leave not taken by the end of the semester is forfeited. It shall not be carried into the next semester. Approval of volunteer service leave is required. Employees must receive approval from their supervisor for volunteer service leave. The supervisor may require that the leave be taken at a time other than the time requested, based on the needs of the college. Leave shall only be requested and approved for service that occurs during the employee's regularly scheduled hours of work. The supervisor may require acceptable proof that leave is being utilized in accordance with the purpose of this policy. Although religious and/or political organizations may be 501c3 agencies, this leave does not apply to activities designed to promote religious, political, or protest events. Service for a fundraising event is eligible for volunteer service leave if there is a bona fide volunteer relationship and the fundraising event is directly sponsored and supported by an eligible community service organization. For example, playing in a golf tournament that is raising money for the American Cancer Society is not considered a volunteer activity that would be eligible for volunteer service leave. However, setting up tents, handling parking and registration, or serving at the food tent at the fundraising golf event would be considered a volunteer activity and would be eligible for volunteer service leave. Volunteering at a fundraising event for an individual citizen or political party is not eligible for volunteer service leave. Additional information can be found in the Employee Handbook, located on the Southern Union website, or in the Human Resources Office,